Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Transfer Talk. I'm Dee and today we'll be discussing the latest Palace transfer rumours of the day. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first transfer rumour of the day is Eberechi Eze. According to the Football Insider, Crystal Palace are confident a new bid for Eberechi Eze will be accepted by QPR and blow West Ham's interest out of the water. And in addition to that, journalist Ed Aarons reported that Palace had a £12 million bid for Eberechi Eze, but that was rejected by QPR. But QPR will be willing to accept anything around £16 million up front for Eze. So we were talking about Eberechi Eze last week, and you saw my comments that I thought that West Ham would be favourites to sign him, but it seems like the tides have turned. It seems like Palace are actually trying to push for Eberechi Eze, had a £12 million bid, which was rejected, of course, by QPR, and rightly so, because even though he hasn't lightened the world apart, he's still worth more than £12 million. So it was a good starting offer, but now we know QPR want around 16 to £20 million for Eberechi Eze. So if Palace can afford £12 million, then hopefully we can push up to £16 million. And we need Eberechi Eze, let's be honest here, because last season we saw it with attacking players. Max Meyer wasn't the player that we expected him to be, and plus he didn't get the opportunity. So we need another attacking player. We need to gamble, and Eberechi Eze, only 22 years old, from QPR, can play anything up top as an attacking midfielder. So that would be vital for Palace. So hopefully we see more news in the coming days with Eberechi Eze, and hopefully Palace can up their bid so we can finally complete this transfer. The second transfer rumour of the day is Ryan Fraser, who has been offered a contract for around £50,000 a week, which will double his wages that he had at Bournemouth by Crystal Palace. And it also mentions that Palace are competing with West Ham and West Brom for the attacking midfielder, according to the Daily Mail. As you know, this isn't the first time that we're talking about Ryan Fraser, as we've mentioned him in previous Transfer Talk episodes. So Ryan Fraser is an interesting one because £50,000 a week for a player of his caliber. Don't get me wrong, he didn't have the greatest of seasons last year around at Bournemouth, but he even mentioned that his head wasn't in the game. He wasn't focused on Bournemouth. He wanted to move away from the club. And then you might think, well, do we need another player that could maybe huff and puff and if things don't go well at Palace, want to move away from the club? Well, I'll understand your point of view. But Ryan Fraser, when he is in his head that he wants to play, he is a brilliant footballer. And we can see that a couple of seasons ago, Ryan Fraser was linked with the clubs such as Arsenal for around £30 million bid. So this will be a gamble, don't get me wrong. But if Ryan Fraser does join Palace and it proves out to be the Ryan Fraser that we saw before, not only last season, but before at Bournemouth, then this would be a fantastic signing, another attacking player, and this is the type of players that we need at Palace. And £50,000 a week, I'm not too sure if it's accurate, but let's say it is, that would be brilliant business for Palace, because you have to consider all things. We're Premier League club, so if you're paying around £50,000 for a player of Ryan Fraser's caliber, who has got potential and is still 26 years old, so he isn't quite in his peak yet, that would be decent. And it would be one that I'm looking forward to. But let's see what happens with Ryan Fraser. We've mentioned him before, as I've said, but now it seems like Palace might be offering him a contract. So is Ryan Fraser going to accept it? We'll see soon. Now we've talked about players coming into the club. Let's talk about some players leaving the club. And one of them is James McCarthy, who could potentially join Celtic, according to the 90-minute website. They have reported that Celtic have joined the race for McCarthy and are confident of securing his signature despite competition from a number of Premier League clubs. Boyhood Celtic fan, McCarthy has never hidden his ambition to play for the Hoops one day. This is a very interesting one, and it's not because James McCarthy has lots of interest from other clubs, and let's be honest, he hasn't been brilliant for Palace this season, and I didn't expect him to. But let's think about the Roy Hodgson factor. Let me know what you guys think, but if we sell James McCarthy, how is Roy Hodgson going to feel about that? And it's not because he's one of the three defensive midfielders that starts week in, week out, but you can see it. Roy Hodgson does have trust in James McCarthy, and as much as we don't like him, or you might like him for his contribution to Palace, this is Roy Hodgson's man, and you could sulk on about this, and you might be thinking, well, if he can sulk on, then Roy Hodgson can go, but it's not as simple as that. So it's an interesting one. He's got 1 year left on his contract, an important consideration, because of course, clubs will be trying to get him up for free. So Palace might have to sell him if he wants to move away from the club, which was reported in January that he does want to move back up north. So this could be an interesting one. We could see James McCarthy leaving the club, but also let me know how much you think James McCarthy is valued. I personally don't think anything above 10 million will happen, and rightly so, because he hasn't performed at the highest of levels. But maybe you guys disagree or you might agree. Let me know. The final rumor of the day, one potentially leaving the club, is Vicente Guaita. So according to Spanish newspaper Estadio Deportivo, Palace may be forced to sell Vicente Guaita for just 3.5 million with 10 months remaining on the contract of the player, who's rumoured to potentially join Real Betis. Now, let's be real. Palace have had some dodgy businesses coming into the club and maybe potentially leaving the club. But I don't think Palace are this dumb to sell Vicente Guaita. I'm not that worried at all. And one thing to consider is that 10-month contract bit that I mentioned in the report. And that's important because you know how agents are. We all know how agents love to push for a new contract, maybe even get a bit more money. So I feel like the agent of Vicente Guaita could be playing a part here. Vicente has come out on social media and has talked about it. He seems like he does love South London and does love Croydon, and his family is settled here. So that's a very positive move. That was my only worry, but he's clarified that, so there's no worries in that aspect. And selling a player of the season for £3.5 million, that is not going to happen. I believe in our board to not do something as stupid as that. So I wouldn't be worried if I was you. But before I mention it, 10 months left in his contract, so hopefully Palace can announce a new deal for Vicente Guaita, who has been fantastic this season for us. Well, that's it for today. But before you go, thank you to every single one of you who have liked, subscribed, and commented on all of our videos. We've managed to hit 500 subscribers, which is a good milestone for us. So we'll keep pushing on for Palace content. More coming in a couple of weeks. And until next time, up the Palace.